Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My name is Katie Dodd, and I'm a nutrition entrepreneur. I spent 7 years as a side hustler before diving into entrepreneurship full time. Before making the leap, I was bringing in 6 figures through my side hustle. If I can do it, you can too. This podcast is for dietitians, interns, and students who want to be inspired to start or perfect the side hustle of their dreams. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the 162nd episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, video one-on-one for side hustlers. I am so excited to invite to the podcast Juana Chun. She is a dietitian, blogger, YouTuber, photographer, videographer, and recipe developer. Her brand is One Pot Wellness, and she's a member of the Blog Boss Mastermind. And Juana, I am so excited to have you on. Would you want to share a couple of words before we get started?
Yeah, thanks so much, Katie. That was a great introduction. I wear a lot of hats, and so it is a mouthful sometimes to kind of keep track of what exactly I do, but I am so excited to be here to speak with you about how dietitians can use video in their side hustle.
Yes. And I'm so excited too. I know we have like a set of questions we're going to go through, but I'm like, this is so good because one of the things I love about this podcast is we are teaching dietitians about all the things that they can do, especially in this online space, but things we didn't learn in school. Video we did not learn in school. And to so many of us, it can feel terrifying. So I'm really excited to have you here as an expert in all things video to kind of break down some of that 101 of how, regardless of what they do for a side hustle, how can they start implementing video? So let's dive into our questions. So my first one for you is, why should dietitians be using video content as a medium for connecting with their audience?
Yeah, video is really the future. I mean, we see AI slowly kind of start to take over. And the thing that we have to realize is people absorb content very differently. For me, I am very much a visual learner. In fact, when I am searching on how to do something, YouTube is usually my go-to search engine. I cannot tell you the amount of times I've had to look up like the glucose metabolism tutorial on YouTube. And that's like generally the first place I go. So as someone who consumes a lot of video myself, I really see the power of using visual through video to get your message across. And people like to see personality, and video is very unique and special in the sense that it allows people to connect with you on a much deeper level than reading a blog article or even like an email for just delivering any messages. So it's really, really powerful in terms of connecting with people. And that's really why I think as dietitians, we should be leveraging video more.
Absolutely. And I love what you said, video is the future. And really, it's also the now because this is the best way to build connections with our audience. I think for some people, email can feel safer. I'm just going to type a video, type an email from the comfort of my own home, where like getting on video can feel scary. But I just really love what you shared there. And as you were talking about how, like, even yourself, you go to YouTube when you're looking at how to do things. My dad is 72 years old. He loves YouTube. He's like obsessed. He goes to it for everything. He helped me with the timing on my lawn water sprinkler system. We went to YouTube. Like, it really is amazing all the things that we could do with video. And one last thing I'll say about it is that I talk a lot about blogging, and the main search engine is Google, but the number 2 search engine is YouTube. People don't often think that YouTube is a search engine. That is what people are using it for. They have questions. Video can provide answers, and it is a wonderful way to connect. So that was a really perfect introduction. So can you share your insights into how would someone create compelling and engaging videos? They don't just want to, make a video that feels awkward, but how can they really leverage this video?
Yeah. And so speaking to a camera is not natural. Ironically, for someone like me, who I'm very introverted, it actually feels a lot less intimidating than speaking to an actual person. And I think part of it is also the fact that we have post-processing, we have editing
Yeah.
that it's okay if you mess up. And because, you can go back and edit all the filler words, the ums, the ahs. And so, in terms of creating engaging content, people have very, very short attention spans. And so,
Yes.
when we are filming short form content for Instagram, for YouTube, for TikTok, it is especially important within the first 2 seconds to capture someone's attention. And so that's why creating a very compelling hook
Mm.
is the way to do that. And so same with writing a blog post, you in general want to have that first paragraph be a very strong introduction. And so with creating short form video, it really depends on what type of video you're looking at, first of all. So for a recipe video, that's going to be a little bit different than, let's say, an educational video. But really just trying to think of a way to introduce some surprise. Maybe if you're filming a recipe video, doing some nice sexy B-roll shots that really gets people's attentions, and also making sure that you are not doing something that's too long. Really, it's about delivering a very powerful message in a short amount of time. And I think that's what is really the most challenging about creating video, is how can we pack a lot
Yeah.
of impact in a short amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think that it's actually probably a relief for a lot of people to know that really short form content is the way to go. It might feel overwhelming, like I have to create a whole webinar to create video. And from what you're sharing, like people do have a short attention span. So we could actually put out video content in small chunks, hook them in, provide our little spiel, and it doesn't have to take a ton of time. And that can also be a wonderful way for people who are just dabbling into the video world. It doesn't have to be something extensive and crazy. Shorter is actually better because we do have very short attention spans.
Yes, and there are actually, like, if you go on Instagram, at least in the food space where I spend a lot of time,
Mhm.
filming recipe videos. But if you look on Instagram, a lot of the quote unquote viral videos that really take off are no less, or they're probably around like 5 to 10 seconds. And it's like maybe two shots of someone like mixing banana bread and then the final product. And so it's really, really short. But it is actually strategic to do shorter videos like that, because what it does is people keep watching the video. It ends up looping.
Mm.
And so your view count starts to go up. And once Instagram or YouTube starts to see that more people are rewatching your video, it's going to push that out even more. And it's going to share that to people outside of your immediate audience. And so there's a lot of strategy that goes into creating that. They call it like a loop, where
Mhm.
the end kind of mixes in with the beginning, so that people don't realize it's towards the end of the video and they just rewatch the beginning. So there's lots of different strategies and techniques that people do, but it is definitely very important that if you do take the time to film video, you want to make sure that you're doing it in a way that people see it, because
Yep.
it does take a lot of time to make good quality content video. Or at least it can be. Certain videos definitely are easier to produce, for something like a recipe video, where you're setting up lighting and the overhead shots, like something that's a little bit more complex. You want to make sure that you're producing something that will actually be seen by people.
Yeah, yeah, and I really love that you mentioned that, the strategy piece, because I think with anything we're doing, we definitely need to have strategy to make sure we're getting the most out of what we're doing and that people see it. And as you were talking about that looping, I'm like, I totally know what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
sometimes I watch videos where like they have some text at the end. I'm like, they didn't give me enough time to read that. So I watch it again and again. I'm like, I bet they did that on purpose now that you're explaining it. So,
Yes, that
yeah.
is 100% like a strategy play. And sometimes I'll see like 2-second videos where it's like 100 different words, and it's like, um, read or like watch this for different techniques. And it's like, there's no way that I can watch that all in one take, you know? So it is very much a strategic move.
Yeah, I feel like when I watch, like when I go to Instagram or YouTube, I'm gonna like be looking at it for like who's doing strategy here, because it makes sense because it helps more people to see your stuff. When more people see your stuff, you can make more impact. So
And that's one way that I myself have learned about different techniques, is really watching videos and
yeah,
watching it from an analytical view of like, why am I staying on this video? And
yes,
what about these scenes, about the way this person is talking? Maybe it's the text that I'm like really drawn and compelled to. So that would be one suggestion that I have for people that, you know, want to start implementing more strategies, is to actually, instead of just mindlessly scrolling Instagram, just take a second to take a look at what you like about that video, and
yeah.
the different like introduction and end shots, and maybe sort of start to experiment with that in your own video.
Mm.
Because that can be, you know, depending on your audience, it may work out, it might not, but it always doesn't hurt to experiment and play around.
Yeah, I love that. That is wonderful advice. So let's talk a little bit about the technical side of video. So, what equipment, software, editing techniques do you recommend for dietitians who are looking to produce high quality content? So, something they want to invest in.
Yeah, so video can get expensive, and
I imagine.
there is just a lot that you can purchase in terms of like different tripods, microphones, different backdrops if you're doing food videos. And so it can get real confusing real quick. What I suggest is to start off with what you already have. Smartphones nowadays actually have very, very incredible cameras that, you know, no one would ever know you're taking a video on a smartphone.
Yeah.
With short form content, you're going to want to film vertically. So holding your phone vertically, whereas if you wanted to film a YouTube video, you're going to want to hold your phone horizontally.
Mhm.
Um, and so if you have an iPhone, a smartphone, even Androids nowadays, like they have very, very great cameras that you can use to film videos. I would say that audio is pretty important when it comes to
Yep.
video. And it's something that you automatically notice the difference in terms of audio quality. So if you were to invest in anything, I'd say invest in some sort of mic.
Mhm.
Now, it can get really confusing in terms of like lavalier mics, like different types of mics. You have the condenser mic, but with filming specifically on like an iPhone, for example, you can get like a really cheap lavalier mic, which basically clips on to your shirt, and you can connect that to your phone or to your camera. And so what this allows you to do is, with a lavalier mic, you can move around and the mic is connected to your shirt. So, you know, it picks up whatever you're saying at the moment. If you're doing something that is like with a camera, there are on camera microphones that you can purchase. But again, just for starters, I would say investing in some sort of external mic, because it'll make a huge difference in terms of the audio quality. And with editing, I really like the free software called CapCut. It was actually developed by the producers of TikTok. And so it is used a lot in the TikTok community, but I think it is one of the most user-friendly, easiest to pick up editing softwares. I've tried a lot of different editing softwares, and they can get complicated real quick.
Mhm.
But CapCut makes it super easy to add in different effects. My favorite feature about CapCut is the auto caption, because that's something that not a lot of editing softwares have. And so the auto captions, basically, it just takes your voiceover, it takes whatever you're saying in the video, and it transcribes that, which saves a ton of time.
Mhm.
And actually putting in captions in the video is a technique and strategy to help engage your audience a little bit more, because most of the time people aren't really playing a video on speaker. It's mainly people are just kind of scrolling through on their phone and have their volume real down. Maybe it's like really early in the morning, maybe like a baby sleeping. And so that's something else I learned, is putting in captions in your videos, because it really helps the audience in terms of whatever kind of situation they're in, they can still watch your video.
Yeah. Yeah, and I actually do that too. When I think of like, okay, I can't turn on the volume right now. I'm in the doctor's waiting room and I'm just, scrolling stuff, but the captions do really help. So, gosh,
Yeah.
you shared so much information. I was typing notes. I was actually pulling up. I'm like, how do I spell lavalier Mike? And for anyone wondering, it is Lavalier, lavalier Mike. And I loved what you shared that, while yes, video can be expensive and that could be overwhelming to people, especially if they're side hustlers. They're like, oh, I don't have all this money, so I'm not going to do it. But we all have smartphones. We almost all of us. I'm sure there's a listener who doesn't, but almost everyone has smartphones. And you're so right. The quality is great. I actually have an Android and I have a work phone that's in Apple, like an iPhone. It's ridiculous how good that video is. Like it's
Oh yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I recently upgraded to the iPhone 14 Pro, and it is game changing. I mean, it was an expensive investment, but I would say that everything from the camera quality to even the microphone, like when I film video on that, I don't even have to connect to an external source, because the audio quality and the microphone is highly sensitive on that one.
Mm,
And so I think starting off with whatever you have. And in terms of a tripod, I see tripods more as like, depends on what you're doing. With recipe videos, I do think having some sort of basic phone tripod is helpful to get some of those overhead shots, some of the angles. It's just much easier for you. And even like there's a bunch of cheap ones that you can buy. Some of them might not be great quality, but if you're just starting off, having something can be great. If you're lucky enough to have like your husband film, that's also wonderful as well. But I know a lot of us are doing this kind of on our own. And so having a tripod can be helpful, but I would say is not a necessity.
yeah, yeah. So really just the smartphones we have. If you don't have a good mic, get a lavalier mic, which are super cheap and affordable. And then CapCut. I love that that's a free software. Are you editing? So I'm thinking here, if you're using your phone to record content, are you using CapCut on your phone or are you uploading it to the computer or both?
Yeah, great question. So CapCut has a web version as well as a mobile version. I typically, when I film on my phone, I just do it all on my phone, because it's just so much simpler to do it all on one platform. And CapCut makes it super easy to just transfer files. If I do want to, let's say, maybe I'm just on my computer, and it is a little bit faster, I will say, doing it on the web version, just because I can kind of go in there with my mouse. It's just a little bit more user friendly on the mobile or on the web version. And so sometimes I will do that, and I'll just kind of like airdrop it to my MacBook. So that's also a very simple technique as well. But definitely just don't overcomplicate it. And there are a bunch of different free editing apps out there. If you don't like CapCut, there's things like InShot I've used, other free different editing softwares that are available. So feel free to just like kind of play around, see what you like, and once you find a system, just stick with it. Don't overcomplicate it, because the process of filming a video is already complicated enough.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, awesome. So it sounds like we've kind of gone through some of the basics of like some tools, equipment. What are some practical tips for dietitians who are just getting out, like getting started with creating video content?
Yes, I think just starting is a big accomplishment.
Love
So
that.
whether that is on Instagram, YouTube, just finding one platform and sticking to that platform. It is very overwhelming if you try to do all of it at once as a newbie. I did that when I first started off. I was posting on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube. And while there is like, obviously you're taking the same video and you're just repurposing, but there are different algorithms. And
Mm,
with Instagram and TikTok, at least, it pushes out content from people that are posting every day,
mm,
which I did not like. I did not want to be spending all of my time, nor did I have the time to be doing that. But with TikTok and Instagram, it's a lot more about, they want to see creators on there a lot. So I kind of ditched Instagram and TikTok, and now I'm focusing on YouTube. And so with YouTube, I like it so much more because I can be gone for a month, post a short, and it'll still do great. So it's really just more easy in terms of like having content. It'll show people, new people outside of your subscriber base. And so I think that can be very motivating when you see, like, hey, there's people actually watching my stuff. Whereas on Instagram, if I don't post for a month, like, no one's going to see anything. So I think just getting started, finding a platform that you like and enjoy. I think also just taking some time to do a little bit of research in your niche, going and seeing what people are doing, what sort of topics they are creating video on, and just making a list of things that you could film. I think kind of doing the whole analysis thing that I was telling you about. And it doesn't have to be like the super formal process where you're like writing down notes and anything. Like, you can kind of just like take a second to intentionally watch a video rather than just aimlessly scroll through.
mm.
Um, and I think also thinking about audio, maybe just taking that first step to purchasing an external microphone. There are different ways also in like the editing and post processing that we can reduce the noise, where if you have like the AC on, sometimes the microphone can pick that up, but there are different ways that we can, help make that video a little bit more smooth and clean for when it is ready to be pushed out into the world.
Yeah, I love that. So pretty much pick one thing and just get started. And I think that's how we learn everything. As dietitians, it could be so easy that we think like, I have to learn everything before I start. And then when you start, you like still feel like it's not good enough. But really, we just got to dive in, focus on one thing. And it's by doing it that we get better. Trial and
Yes,
error.
exactly. And you always say done is better than perfect. And
Yeah.
I'm really trying to embrace that in my life. And so you know, it is the same with video. Just get something out, and it will not be great in the beginning. Just knowing that your first 5 to 10 videos are not going to be great. They might have something funky. You might have done something weird in the editing process. But just by doing and learning and also observing and being a consumer as well can really just help you in terms of picking up different tips. And with time, as with everything, practice makes perfect. So we all got to start somewhere. Just putting something out there and revising and learning as you go.
Yeah. And I love what you said when you first start, it's not going to be great. And that's a really good expectation to have. And even thinking of it as your baseline. And for me, when I get started, I actually look forward to one day looking back on my number one and being like, that wasn't very good because I've grown so much. Like, even with this podcast, I think I said it very early on, this podcast is my practice in imperfection. And I'm like, I can't wait to one day look back at episode one and be like, oh, that was awkward, but that's a good thing. I love my business coach, Greg Todd. He is such an eloquent speaker. He is so good at what he does, but I love going back to his old archived YouTubes. I will say his YouTube account got hacked, so he had to start over. But at a time, I was able to go back and I looked at him and I'm like, he wasn't always this amazing speaker. And that was like reassuring for me because sometimes we look at people like doing video content. We're like, oh, mine's nothing compared to them. But everyone starts somewhere. So it's our baseline. It's not going to be great. But if we set realistic expectations, embrace done is better than perfect and dive in, we're going to
Yes.
get great.
And you also got to remember that you don't know what kind of help these people are getting. You know,
True.
like some people might have someone helping them film, someone
Yep.
helping them, if you're doing recipe videos, like someone helping them
Mm-hmm.
clean, doing dishes. Like you don't know the kind of what goes on behind. And some of these people very much might have editors that
Yeah.
help with the video editing, which takes a long time. So just giving yourself that grace and like trying not to compare your journey with other people's, because again, it's a very different circumstance that we all have. So just trying to kind of put on those blinders and tunnel vision through and not
Yep.
letting the noise get to you, because that's very easy to do in all of this social media digital age.
Yes, for sure. So, my next question, what type of videos tend to engage viewers the most? I feel like we've kind of alluded to this, but maybe just as we're getting close to wrapping up, just so people know as they're moving forward.
Yeah. So I think with engaging content specifically, shorter is better. That's
Yep.
what we are
Yep.
noticing in terms of trends.
Okay.
Also, videos that have trending music, and
Mm,
on platforms, on all three platforms, actually, they'll have different trending sounds. And so I always try to look through, see if there is something that is a trending sound that I can add to my video. And sometimes I'll do this really cool thing in my editing process where I'll actually like edit the video according to the beats. So that way it's kind of a little bit more of like a rhythmic thing going on. But, you know, finding something that is catchy. And I have found actually that there was this one YouTube short that I posted where I did no audio and it didn't really do well. I think it got maybe like 300 views the first day that I posted, which I usually get anywhere between like 1.5 to 2.5 thousand on a view or on a video. And so I ended up taking that down. I think this was like a month later. I ended up taking it down, but repurposing it and reposting it with a trending sound. Next morning, it was at like 1.5 thousand. And so it's really just interesting the small little details and like people don't notice if you repost a video. And that's
yes.
something actually that I would recommend is if you have a video that is doing very well, repost that 3 months down the line, because you're going to have new people coming in and, you know, people aren't going to notice if it's the same one, at least for short form content. So finding ways that if you do find that one video that works, reposting it down the line so that it gets even more engagement. I also think the having the captions in also is a great way to engage viewers. I think starting off with, and this can get a little dicey with the internet, but you know, talking about something that might be slightly controversial. As dietitians, I think we have so much power to speak on different nutrition myths and all this bogus noise that goes on in the
Yes.
world of health, wellness. And so don't be afraid to kind of weigh in on that. Keep an eye out for different trendy things. So, you know, if you see a creator who might not have a huge following, but has this one video that has like a million views. And so take that video that they have that kind of blew up and think about why that video did that well. So right now I can kind of say that cottage cheese is weirdly a trending topic. All of my cottage cheese videos have done super, super well. And that was something that I noticed, that I saw this one creator who she was posting a lot of recipes with cottage cheese and they were doing so great. And I'm like, all right, I guess people are interested in cottage cheese now. So I went to Costco, bought a 2 pound thing of cottage cheese and started doing all different types of recipes. So being observant is
Mhm.
also going to help, and finding again some of those like little gold nuggets of video topics, keywords. And speaking of keywords, that's actually something I think is a great place for beginners to start out, is creating like a small little video that focuses on some of the more SEO keywords. So
Mhm.
even, and I believe SEMrush and other types of keyword research tools have even like a keyword research for YouTube. So using that as a way to gain inspiration, because at least for YouTube, it's an evergreen platform. People, once you post a
Yes.
video, people can find it. And so with more, especially like how to posts or like instructional videos, that can be a great starting point, because you'll know that people will be searching that term and will be finding your videos somehow. So I think those are kind of just like, at least now at this point, shorter, more um, just kind of concise videos are what is tending to attract viewers a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is so good. So I feel like I'm definitely going to have you back on the podcast later, Juana, because there's like so much stuff I want to dive into, even with, individual little bits and pieces of what you're talking about. I'm like, oh, this is so good. So I'll definitely have to have you back on. But this has been so wonderful for that high level video 101 for side hustlers. We talked about so much stuff, from like those tips on how to get the most out of using video, focusing on one thing, just get started. You could use your phone, lavalier mic, CapCut, which is free for editing, shorter is better, using trending music, adding captions, being observant. I really like that. Being observant of what hooks you in. What do you like? Why are these videos doing so well? So this has been such a good conversation, and I appreciate you so much for coming on the podcast. So do you have something for our audience if they want to learn more about like getting started with video, like kind of the 101, especially related to like the short form content?
Yes, I do. And so there is a lot that goes on in terms of thinking about a topic, filming, creating, editing. So I created a checklist that is specifically tailored for short form content. And it kind of goes through some of the details that I spoke about in today's call, where, just checking for certain things, that am I creating a compelling hook? Am I switching up scenes every second to make sure my viewer is engaged? So small little reminders about kind of like a checklist, where before you post that video, make
Yeah.
sure that you're incorporating these things to make it as engaging and as compelling as possible.
I love that. And, I love a good checklist. And especially because everything we talked about is amazing, but I imagine it could be a little overwhelming. Like, I don't want to miss anything. So your checklist is going to help people get started with video. Here's what you need to do. Let's make sure everything's done and just feel more confident as they're getting started. So where can people find that checklist?
Yes, it'll be on my website, which is www.voicewithvideo.com, and it will be on the homepage. So there is a place where you can get the guide. There's also a newsletter that I will be sending out with just some very practical tips, and goes a little bit more in depth into like certain questions that a lot of people have on video, like what's an aspect ratio, what's a lavalier mic. So I go down and break that down in the newsletter that I send out. So all of that information will be on voicewithvideo.com.
Awesome. So voicewithvideo.com. I'm going to put that in the show notes. And a quick little shout out to for what Juana does. In addition to all of the hats that she wears, she also does help dietitians with video content and video editing. So if you're like, this is amazing, but I don't want to do the work, reach out to Juana. So,
Yes.
so as we wrap up, where can people find you online so that way they can follow what you're doing, learn more about all these things?
Yes, the best place would be voicewithvideo.com. Sign up for my newsletter to stay up to date. And kind of just, with the guide, having that. And then if you want to look at my recipes for some inspiration, I'm at One Pot Wellness on YouTube, and onepotwellness.com is my food blog. So you can also look through my food website for just some inspiration.
So, well, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so
Um,
much, Katie. It was so much fun, and thanks for having me.
hey guys, wasn't it so fun having Juana on to learn all about video? That was such a fun conversation, and I hope that you learned so much from it. Be sure to go to www.voice2video.com to learn more about what Juana does and to get that little checklist so it can help you as you do your own video. So if you are not already signed up for my blogging as a business webinar, I want you to go to blogfreebie.com. Blogfreebie.com, you can sign up for this free webinar that I'm doing on September 6th. It's going to be at 5 o'clock Pacific time, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Replay is available. If you're like, Katie, I'm busy that night, sign up anyways. I want to get so many people on this webinar. Join yourself, share with your friends. You could also go to katiedodd.com. The link will be there, and you could also learn about all the ways we could work together. So thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you.